Alright, so in the video from the weekend, you guys had to learn about graphing vertical and horizontal inequalities. So the key difference being our shading, whether we shade left and right or shade up and down. We're going to start today by just making sure we understand what is and what is not a solution. So in this case, our solutions are going to be inside this dark shaded region. Solutions are not on dashed lines, but solutions are on solid lines. So we're going to kind of talk about and differentiate all of that. So if I'm looking at the point 0, -4, that means from the origin, I don't go left or right, I go down 4. Here's 0, -4. That is not in the dark shaded area. It's in the light shaded area. That means it's a solution to one inequality, but not the other. This is not a solution to this graph. Now, -7, 0. This one can be a little bit complicated. -7, 0 is right here. You might think it's in the dark shaded region, but it's not, because it's on a dashed line. When it's on a dashed line, it doesn't matter where on that dashed line. Even if it's right next to the dark shaded region, it is not a solution. The ordered pair 2, 3 would be up here. That's a yes. That's in the dark shaded region. That's a solution. Then -8, 2 is up here, again, just like this first one, just like 0, -4. That's the light shaded area. That's not a solution. Now there's one on here, or not on here, that I want to talk about. What if we had a point, say, 7, -2? Well, 7, -2 is similar to -7, 0, being that it's on the line, but it's on a shaded in line, or it's on the shaded area on a solid line. That's a yes. That's a no. Okay. Another one to talk about real quick would be one like -10, -2. Okay. It's on a solid line, but it's not at the shaded area. That's a no. Okay. Even though it's on a solid line, that means it's a solution to that inequality. It's not a solution to the other one because it's not next to the shaded area. The two problems on the bottom here have already got these inequalities graphed, but we haven't shaded them yet. So this is really just majorly practice on shading. So understanding which one is which. This one we can tell because of the symbol is going to have a dashed line. Okay, so that's this inequality. Now, that symbol tells us two things. It's going to tell us that it's a dashed line. It's also going to tell me that I am going to shade, because this has y and x. I'm talking about shade above or below. This is greater than, I shade above. So I'm going to go to those arrows and I'm going to put a little plus sign above the arrows, because that's where I am shading for that inequality. For the second inequality, it's just an x. Okay. This symbol means it's a solid line, which we have graphed here already, but because it's just an x, now it's talking about left or right. And then greater than, again, the symbol is pointing right, I'm going to shade it right. So I'm going to go to the arrows on that inequality and put little plus signs next to the arrows on the right, because that's the side I'm going to shade. We have 4 sections now that have been created at that intersection. I have the section in the top left, top right, bottom left. I only need to shade in my dark shaded region. So this one would be shaded above, this one would be shaded right. The overlap is going to be the section that has 2 plus signs, above one of them, to the right of the other. That's the section I shade in. I don't need to shade in the other ones. Over here, this section would be a solution to the solid line, but not a solution to the dashed line. Solution to the dashed, not the solid. Solution to nothing. Okay, so the only shaded region is up here. Second one is going to be a horizontal line. This is my solid line based on this symbol. And when it's a Y, I shade up or down. That's my vertical. Okay, so this symbol means solid line. Spell that right. And it means down. So I'm going to go to my solid line and put my plus signs underneath because I'm shading that down. The second one is X, that's left or right. This symbol means a dashed line, and it means right. So go to the arrows and put a plus sign on the right side. And again, I'm looking for the section, the quadrant, that has 2 plus signs, which in this case is the bottom right. This is the section that gets shaded in. I don't shade anything else in. So for number 6, both inequalities have already been solved for y. I want you to go ahead and try to graph both of the inequalities and shade it. Press pause and try that, please. So our inequalities should look like this. The first equation is a dashed line because of the symbol. I started at -2, always on the y-axis, with a slope of +1. And then my second one is a solid line because it's a less than or equal to. And I started at +5 on the y-axis with a slope of 1. Now, the shading. This is a greater than. So for the dashed line, I am going to shade up. So I'll go up above those arrows. For the solid line, it's a less than. I shade below. So I'll go to those arrows and put my plus sign below. You can see the overlap is actually right in between. My overlap section here is directly in between these. That's where I shade in. I shade in the area that is directly between these two inequalities. For number 7, the first inequality we can graph, but the second one needs to be solved for y. So I'm going to divide by -2, divide by -2, divide by -2. But what happens, be very careful, we do get y, we get -1/2 x minus 2, but I divided by a negative. When you divide by a negative, you must flip your inequality. Now, go ahead and graph these two inequalities and shade as well, please. So the first one is a solid line, and I will shade up. So I have a solid line, started at 1, down 1, right 1, and I have my plus signs above. The second inequality is a dashed line above, so I dashed that line. It started at -2 and then down 1, right 2, above as well. So you can see if I went above the dashed line, this is not an overlap section because it's above and above. Okay. So I have to be above my blue line, and I have to be, oops, I put that one in the wrong spot, above my red line. The only spot that's above blue and above red is stay above the red. If I go below, I'm no longer a solution. And above this blue, that puts this area up here as my shaded region. Go ahead and shade that in. And we're ready to try the last two problems. Alright, so both of these are the vertical and horizontal graphing. I'm going to do the first one with you, and I'll have you guys pause and do the last one on your own. Think about the variable. If it's a y alone, y and no x, okay, that's going to be vertical shading. So it's a horizontal line. And when it's an x only, x goes left and right, but that's the shading. So it's a vertical line. Now, understanding this, I go to my y-axis to 1. This is an open circle. So I'm going to go to my y-axis at 1 and put an open circle. Horizontal, and then the line is dashed. So just like with graphing this on a number line, it's an open circle, but like graphing the lines are linear inequalities, I have to know that open circle is the same as a dashed line. So I am going to dash the horizontal line at positive 1. Now, that symbol, it's going to mean dashed, which we just did, and greater than means up or above, because the shading is vertical, the line is horizontal. So I would be shading this line above it. I'll put my plus signs above. For my x, I know this is going to be a solid line. I'll go to my x-axis at -4. I'll put a solid circle because this is a solid line. Solid circle, solid line. Okay. And I am going to shade left or right with this because the vertical line you shade left or right, it's a less than. I'm going to shade left. That's here and here. I find my overlap quadrant. This is one but not the other. This has none. One but not the other. 1, 2. There's my shaded region. Go ahead and pause and try number 9, please. So we have a solid line and shade up, which means it's a horizontal line, a dashed line and shade right.